Hey ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, you're watching Channel Hot Monkey, and today we're going to take a look at some amazing facts about Windows 10. It's been 6 months since Microsoft released its latest OS to the public, and by now you've probably already seen tons of fact videos and articles. You know, those lists that tell you how the start menu is back, how you can switch between multiple desktops, or how you can enable a hidden dark mode. And that's all nice and jolly, but this time we're gonna do something different. Instead of telling you about things that you can find on your own on your personal computer, I'm gonna take you just a bit deeper behind the scenes and give you some of the stories surrounding the already famous Windows 10. So let's start from the beginning, shall we? In fact, we're going so far back in the story even before the number 10 comes to the whole Windows picture. If we jump just a few releases back, we can remember the very popular Windows 7. Then Windows 8 came along, followed by the 8.1 update. And then we got 10. But why did Microsoft jump from 8 to 10? What happened to the 9th version of Windows? Well, nothing special in fact, we actually did get it. The only thing is that it's not called 9, but rather 10. So the 9th version of Windows is here, it's just disguised in a different number. But why? The question still lingers. Why is the 9th version of this OS numbered with 10 instead of the number that chronologically describes it? This was actually a very big mystery for a while, and many crazy theories emerged on the internet. The most believable one wasn't that crazy at all, but it did take a developer's mind to figure it out. While the internets were brainstorming for possible reasons, one Reddit user posted this. Now, if you're thinking, what the heck is this? Here's the final explanation. The code that was posted on Reddit is something called a snippet, which is basically a programming term for a small set of reusable code. A lot of old Windows software that has been programmed to work with every release of the OS still have a version of the snippet which allows them to work on two Windows versions that have the number 9 in them, Windows 95 and 98. So if the latest version of Windows contained this number in the name, those programs could have easily confused it with Windows 95 or 98, causing compatibility issues and software instability. At the time, people from Microsoft were saying how jumping from 8 to 10 was simply a statement of the shift Windows 10 was going to be compared with older versions. However, technically, they did give one other explanation. According to the company, 789. Get it? 789? It ate it? No, really, I'm being serious. During a Microsoft Build conference held in spring of 2015, company employees wore a blue t-shirt that had a Windows logo filled with binary code. At first, nobody knew what this code meant, but it didn't take long for it to get cracked. Developer Kevin Goose quickly figured out the message hidden behind the series of zeros and ones, which stated the following. Number 1, there are 10 types of people in the world. Number 2, Windows 10 because 789. I told you I wasn't joking. Number 3, congrats on being one of the first. This was probably alluding on the first few people who figured out the message. And finally, number 4, Windows insiders help us develop the future. Talk to us at Windows. All this code talk making you dizzy? Let's switch to a different story, shall we? One of the most popular features of Windows 10 was the famous Start menu, which was not included in Windows 8 and 8.1. In the latest version of the OS, the Start menu had its big comeback after Microsoft decided to give it a whole new feeling and look. While most users were happy to see it back, one man in particular really wasn't impressed at all. The man who invented it. The Start menu was first introduced way back in Windows 95. It was the final product of a concept designed by former Microsoft behavioral psychologist Danny Oran, who today holds not only the patent for the Start menu, but the Windows taskbar as well. After leaving his contribution to the company, Oran left Microsoft in 1994 before Windows 95 was even released. After the release of Windows 10 in 2015, Oran gave an interview for Business Insider in which he stated, "In some ways, it's a little disappointing the same stuff is in there." Referring to the previous Windows 8, he followed by saying how that version of Windows at least tried something new besides the start menu he invented decades ago. One thing in Windows 10 that definitely was done differently than in any other version of the OS was the default wallpaper. When you first look at it, off the top of your head you might guess that it's an ordinary digital image designed in Photoshop. But you would be very wrong. Officially called the Hero Desktop Image, it was created in a studio in San Francisco, and all thanks to technology like camera mapping, lasers, and projectors. Everything you see in this pretty blue image is made entirely out of light. Creative director Bradley G. Munkovitz compared the logo to a portal that allows us to look into space. There's a lot of design to it, he said, but it's really more about the real physical presence of the logo. Knowing that such a huge number of people would be viewing it as their background image, Microsoft really went the extra mile while making the Hero wallpaper. And speaking of numbers, how did Windows 10 do after its big release? Apparently, really well. In January of 2016, Microsoft reported that Windows 10 was active on more than 200 million devices worldwide. And that's not all they bragged about. According to the company, users spent over 11 billion hours on Windows 10 in December of 2015 alone. Over 2.5 billion questions were asked of Cortana since launch, over 82 billion photos were viewed within the Windows 10 Photo app, and gamers streamed more than 6.6 million hours of Xbox One games to Windows 10 PCs. Very interesting stats, you have to admit, but if there's one thing more interesting than the stats themselves, it's the question, how did Microsoft get all that information in the first place? By now, you're probably very much aware of the spying controversy surrounding Windows 10. The latest OS by Microsoft is a cloud-based operating system which collects a lot of information about users by tracking their activities. And while Microsoft has always stood their ground by stating how they collect this information in order to build the best products for their consumers, so many people worldwide have only one word for this type of monitoring: spying. In fact, some went as far as calling Windows 10 one big piece of spyware. Truth be told, there are a lot of elements in this OS that make it possible for Microsoft to collect your information, from data syncing to advertising IDs and a whole bunch of things in between. Pretty standard stuff for today's cloud-based operating systems, some might say. But did you know that Microsoft can literally listen to every sound you make and see every key that you type? And it's all done thanks to Cortana and the Get to Know Me option in Windows 10 that allows the system to efficiently learn speech patterns. Microsoft can practically have eyes and ears on you in any given moment. Even though those features can be disabled by users themselves, the fact that most of them are active by default, or that they simply exist, for so many people is just unacceptable. Now, if this is making you kinda mad, maybe our last topic might soften you up just a little bit. Did you know that Windows 10 is going to be the last version of Windows? Well, maybe it is and maybe it isn't. But that's exactly what was implied by Microsoft employee Jerry Nixon during a company conference held in May 2015. Quote, "Right now, we're releasing Windows 10, and because Windows 10 is the last version of Windows, we're all still working on Windows 10. End quote. So what's the deal? Hearing something like this logically makes you think that Microsoft is killing off Windows. Are they? Well, absolutely not. Windows has been around for quite some time now, and despite this kind of choice of words from certain people at Microsoft, it's probably going to stick around at least for the foreseeable future. You see, Microsoft has changed the way it looks at Windows, and as a result, that will impact the way they deliver the OS to their end users. Instead of putting out major releases every couple of years, They're focused on delivering Windows as a service that would be gradually improved by regular updates that don't really put much accent on the version numbers. Technically, there could and probably will be such a big change that would be the equivalent of a Windows 11 or 12 upgrade. But with the absence of promotion of the number, eventually it would lose all of its significance, finally leaving us with just Windows. So instead of it being the end, in some ways, it's really the start of a new era. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. This is Channel Hot Monkey signing off. Stay strong.